You ever wonder which voiceover niches are actually the easiest to break into, and which ones are basically locked behind a steel door where they throw away the key? Today, I'm ranking the major VO genres from easiest to hardest to break into based on my experience and what I see in the industry. If you're new, this will save you a ton of time and prepare you for what you're in for. And if you're a pro, let's see if you agree. By the way, I'm Jesse Carroll. I've done over 2,000 voiceover commercials. I've narrated for History and Hulu and built $1 million voiceover business. I've also worked in almost every single voiceover genre, and I've seen what's possible and what's a total grind. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number one, straight out of the gate, let's start at the bottom. Audiobooks. Audiobooks are hands down the easiest to get into. They also pay the shittiest. There are a ton of opportunities, especially on platforms like ACX, but here's the catch. They pay terribly. You spend hours, sometimes days or months recording and editing, and then the pay is often less than minimum wage. But if you want to get your first credit, cut your teeth, and learn the basics of recording and editing, audiobooks are a great place to start. And if you do a good job, you can negotiate much better than minimum wage depending on how fast you work. One of the best ways to do audiobooks from what I've learned is to actually go direct to the publisher. ACX is going to pay you peanuts, but if you go direct to the publisher, you can get more fair rates, upwards of like $300, $400, even $500 per finished hour. Now, per finished hour, if you're new, is going to take you a few hours. If you're good at this, 2 hours. Next up is my favorite genre for making money. Is commercials. Commercials are fairly easy to get into and you don't need acting training. What you do need is the ability to read and talk at speed. That means picking up the words off the page and saying them like they're coming right out of your mouth for the first time, just coming off the top of your head, as if they're your own words. If you can sound like a real person, you can book commercials. Here's the thing. Commercials are the bread and butter for almost everyone in voiceover, myself included. Unless you're like a video game or an animation star, commercials are what pay you the bills. And even everybody I know that does video games and animation, that does them really well at a high level, they all do commercials too. Look on TV. Hollywood stars are doing commercials, even in voiceover. So that should be the cornerstone of your voiceover income, in my humble opinion. Now, along those lines, which is kind of an offshoot of commercials, offshoot. On those lines, you've got corporate narration, e-learning, and explainer videos. These are similar to commercials in terms of skill set, but e-learning is going to get harder to break into. Why? Because if the company doesn't have a big budget, they'll just use AI. For a lot of internal training, they don't care about performance. They just want the info delivered. That said, there's still a ton of work in this space, especially if you're good at sounding clear, friendly, and professional. The way to beat AI is don't try to sound like an AI when you're doing e-learning or corporate like people often do. Try to sound like a real person. Now we're going to do a quick honorable mention. Medical reads. They're not overly difficult to get into, especially if you know the medical terminology and can pronounce it, but they're really fucking hard to do. Unless you understand and can pronounce medical terminology. Maybe you went to, nurse school, doctor school, something like that. I don't know what the technical term is for it, but if you know it, cool. Maybe you were a pharmaceutical rep. I actually work fairly regularly in the medical field. Because I can pronounce the words because I'm doing tongue twisters every single day. But I just keep raising the price of what I charge for it because it's, like I said, really hard to do, especially in a live directed session because they've got somebody who can pronounce the words, usually a doctor or somebody with medical experience, correcting you all the way through. So I charge. If you're going to do medical reads, charge a lot. Not super hard to get into if you know what you're doing. Really fucking hard to do. Level 10, to do well at least. Now we're getting into the tougher stuff to get into. Promo, documentary, and TV narration. These gigs are harder to land. The competition is fierce, the budgets are bigger, and the expectations are higher. You need to have a polished sound, a strong sense of timing, and often a killer demo. These jobs usually go to people with agents or established relationships in the industry. When I did Backroad Truckers for Hulu and History Channel, I got that from my agent. And I booked it over 10,000 people, somewhere around that. Thousands. We'll just say 10,000. I don't know the actual number, but they looked all across Canada and all across the US and I got it. So I beat out everybody for that one. That's how hard it was to get. Luckily, I had the exact voice that they were looking for, but still, it's probably a coin toss a bit. Hard to get into. Need an agent for it. In fact, so hard to get into, I haven't booked another docuseries since Backroad Truckers. Yet. Okay, now we are at the top of the difficult scale. Video games and animation. These are the dream gigs for a lot of people. A ton. Everybody wants to do a Pixar film with The Rock. I don't know. They're also the hardest to break into. You need acting chops, improv skills, and the ability to take direction on the fly. The competition is insane, and most of the work goes to people with years of experience, specialized training, and connections. They live in LA. They make friends. They make connections. But here's the caveat. Even though video games animation are the hardest to get into, they also don't pay a lot unless you're one of the lead actors, which often goes to celebrities. But hey, you never know. If you're one of the smaller roles, or you're just like an NPC character, or like a guest star in animation, you're not gonna make a ton of money. SAG rate is like $250 an hour, which is basically audiobook rates, but hey, it's fun and it will give you accolades. You get to go to things like Comic-Con, get legions of fans and Instagram followers if you're into that, and gives you credibility and clout, which can help you book more work in other genres like commercials that pay a lot. But for most people, commercials are always going to be the bread and butter. And that's where the money is. That's where the volume is. And that's what keeps the lights on, at least in my eyes. So all this being said, this is just my take based on what I've seen and done. Your path might look totally different. The key is to try everything, see what you enjoy, and double down on what you're good at. And remember, every genre has its own learning curve. The easiest one for you might be the hardest one for someone else. I've found commercials extremely easy for me since I started. I just took to them like a fish in water. I found video games animation extremely difficult, but for me, I found that when I do video games animation, I'm starting to do a little bit more of them now, they're extremely rewarding. You know, I have so much fun doing it. Like I said, it doesn't pay the most, but I feel like it fills me up artistically. Lately, I've actually been cutting back on the commercial auditions that I've been doing. I'm focusing more on video games animation because I just got a killer agent who's sending me tons of shit right now. So I really want to capitalize on that. And I want to be in a AAA video game. It's happening. I got in a AA video game, and then it got paused indefinitely. It's a big one too. I can't wait. I'm under an NDA, but I can't wait till I don't know, it either collapses or they start up again and bring on somebody else or whatever the hell's gonna happen with it. Then I can tell you guys which game it was. You're gonna freak out. Anyway, what was my point? Oh yeah, the money isn't always the main thing. What makes you happy? Video games and animation make me happy, and I look at commercials more of a pay the bills kind of thing. I do enjoy them too, just not as much as video games animation. So here are some tips for breaking in. Audiobooks. Start on ACX, but don't stay there forever. Use it to learn, then move on. You're gonna get better rates if you go direct to publisher. Commercials. Practice reading scripts out loud, sounding natural, and recording yourself daily. You want the words to sound like they're coming off the top of your head. Don't be an AI, be a human. Put your personality into it, and it's okay to improv. Corporate and e-learning. Focus on clarity, pacing, and sounding like a real person, not a robot. AI can do that stuff extremely well, so you want to be able, at least on a flat level, right, with no personality. You want to put your personality into it, so you will crush the robots. I feel like I needed a Russian accent in there. So you will crush the robots. Promo and documentary. Build a killer demo. Get some training. Study with the pros, and get an agent. You're going to need one to get into those stuff. For video games animation, take acting class, improv classes, build a character demo, and network like crazy and get an awesome agent. It's got to be done, and you can do it. You know, I found, for me, I f***ed around with getting into animation and video games for the longest time because I've done extensive on-camera acting training. I thought it was all the same. And then I started studying with Mark Grau, who's in VoiceOver School, by the way, my community where we help actors go from knowing nothing to booking their first job to going full-time, getting nominated for awards, winning awards, and even earning six figures. Mark Grau is one of our coaches in there. When I started coaching with him for video games animation, everything changed. And as soon as I got a demo that he produced, he directed and produced and wrote, and I performed in it, everything just started changing really quickly. So don't underestimate getting training for video games animation, getting a great demo, and networking with somebody like Mark Grau. Back to the tips here. Medical reads. Practice medical terminology. Listen to real medical narrations and get feedback from the pros. If you want to get into that genre, if you like, you know, doing hard shit, that would be a good one to get into. It also pays really well too, because they know it's hard. Medical reads are hard. And if you, my friend, want to learn how to do all this stuff, we teach everything except audiobooks in VoiceOver School. We have Mark Grau teaching animation and video games. He's an OG legend behind the business. teaching every week. Dave Beeson teaching every week as well, authentic commercial voiceover. I teach in there. We just added improv, and also we have a ton of stuff going on now, and we teach you the business of voiceover well, heavy on the business side. So if that interests you, check the links below. We just actually released tiered memberships. School, the platform that exists on, let us release tiered memberships. So now it's affordable for everybody. So if you're working on a shoestring budget and you want to get into voiceover, check the links below. The basic level, everybody can afford it. So I want to know from you guys in the comments below, which genre do you want to break into? Did I get the order right from easiest to hardest? Let me know in the comments. And if you got any value out of this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, send this to someone you like, send it to someone you don't like, and we will see you in the next one. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to start. Peace.